Okay, ma'am. Okay. Okay, good evening, everyone. I have been provided with a case of a 61-year-old man presented to OPD with complaints of nasal fullness since 1 year with frequent episodes of headache. Okay. I have been provided with axial images of CT scan with soft tissue window and coronal images of NCCT scan with bone window, uh, which shows a large ISO 2 hypodense mass filling the left nasal cavity with its expansion and extending laterally into the left maxillary sinus, anteriorly left maxillary sinus with the uh, and anteriorly it is extending into the anterior ethmoidal air cells, and posteriorly the mass is extending into the nasopharyngeal space through the choana, and it is causing on the NCCT bone window images, we can see it is causing expansion of the osteomeatal complex on the right, on the left side, with non-visualization of the inferior, middle, and superior turbinates. And the soft tissue mass lesion is also seen. It also shows a few hyperdense areas, ill-defined hyperdense areas within. Uh, Along with few of the calcific foci on the anterior ethmoidal and the anterior nasal cavity. There is also linear foci of linear hyperdensity noted in the anterior nasal cavity, which represents trapped bony fragments or foci of calcification. And there is also incidental finding of lobulated soft tissue mass lesion noted at the posterior inferior aspect of right maxillary sinus, uh, and the similar soft tissue density also noted involving the left sphenoid sinus. There is also noted bony rare fraction along the uh, medial wall of the left maxillary sinus and along the posterior aspect of the posterior part of the nasal septum. The mass lesion is medially, the mass lesion is extending up to the nasal septum, however, not crossing it. And um, uh, out of from the CT images, NCCT images, the probable differentials would include.
Okay, let's hang on here, Komal. Komal, get your mic closer to your mouth. We'll be able to hear you better.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, this is better. So, you have said that it is a left nasal cavity mass extending into the left maxillary and which sinuses?
Left maxillary, left frontal,
Yeah.
and left sphenoid.
Okay.
Sphenoidal.
So, can you which window will you use to see where the mass is extending on a CT
Uh,
scan? This is a plain CT scan, right? So, when a
yes.
patient comes to you with nasal stuffiness and headache, the first thing that the first investigation that is referred the patient is referred to is a non-contrast CT scan of the PNS, and that is what was asked for and done. So which window do you use to see what is the extent of the mass?
To look for any extension beyond the bony margins, we usually see NCCT
Okay, now,
bony window.
we are limited to the sinuses and the nasal cavity, right? You were saying the mass extends into the frontal sinus and the maxillary sinus and the sphenoid sinus, right?
Right, ma'am.
So where do you see that?
On the along the soft tissue window, ma'am. Soft
Okay.
tissue window, and if through the bone window, we can see crossing the osteometal complex and
Okay, fine. So all bony changes are better seen on the bone window, obviously. So can you trace the mass for me here in, let's say, the bottom left image? Like, how do you trace the mass? Is there any, can you see where is the mass and where is, or is there any sinusitis there accompanying there? How will you see that? Can you trace the mass in the nasal cavity and the maxillary sinus for me? Yeah, on this image, right? Okay, fine. Yeah, so you can trace this mass as a convex marginated lesion into the maxillary sinus because it is slightly, what density is this? You didn't,
Ma'am, it's actually isodense. It's actually heterogeneous density with usually isodense with few foci of interspersed hyperdensity, like here, and few areas of hyperdensity within the soft tissue mass lesion.
To put it directly, Komal, like, is the entire left maxillary sinus replaced by the is involved by the mass, or a part of it is involved by the mass?
Ma'am, to call it is on the NCCT whether it is involved by the mass or by the secretions, it would be difficult. Here at by only the NCCT images, I could say that the mass is occupying whole of the nasal cavity, left nasal cavity, and the maxillary sinus.
Right. So perfect. That's a great answer. That NCCT will not give you all the answers here, right? But still, there is some difference in density between the mass and the retained secretions within the sinus. And you can see it here as this convex marginated lesion on the bottom left, right? There's some hyperdensity there that you traced the margin of. Trace it again. Trace it again for the benefit of other residents here. So trace the margin into the maxillary sinus.
This one,
yeah. So this is slightly hyperdense as compared to the secretions therein.
Hypodensity, yes.
So, and in fact, to make this even more obvious, you could, I haven't given you a DICOM case, so it's not possible for you to do it. But can you do something with the window settings that can accentuate this difference for you and can make it better for you? Some trick that you can use?
Window setting by...
You could narrow the window settings and the distinction would become more apparent.
Obvious.
Now go back to your bone windows. So here you said there is expansion of the nasal cavity and destruction of which bones?
Ma'am, there is a rarefaction of the medial wall of the left maxillary sinus.
Okay, there's a widened ostium and the mass is in the antrum, yes, and it is bowed laterally. I'm not too sure about rarefaction. If I see it with the other side, it's kind of similar to me. I'm not very convinced of the rarefaction bit, but anyways. And then how about any other bones what other bones that you should look at when you're looking at a nasal cavity mass?
And nasal septum.
Okay. That's fine.
And the cribriform plate.
Yeah, so that mention was missing from your description. That's a very, very important thing to look at, right? So what is happening to the cribriform plate?
It is discontinuous along the medial aspect.
Yeah. So what part of a cribriform plate is this called? What is the nomenclature?
Lamella.
Yeah. So we have two lamellas to it. Yes. So we have the medial lamella and the vertical or the lateral lamella. Can you show these? Can you show these on the right hand side, normal right hand side?
Okay, this one.
Maybe on the bottom left image. Bottom corner image on the left.
Okay.
Now show me the normal.
Ma'am, this is the lateral lamina, ma'am.
No, that's the fovea ethmoidalis. Trace it down. Trace it down. Okay. I can't use my cursor here. I will request you for control here. Can you? Okay. Great. Okay, so this is your horizontal lamella, or the what do you call it? Medial lamella of the cribriform plate. This is the middle turbinate which joins it here, and this demarcates the medial from the vertical lamella. So it would be better seen on a zoomed up image. I don't have that here, but if you could zoom your screen, I could show it better. But this part is your medial lamella, vertical part is lateral lamella, and then it continues here over the ethmoid, which is the
Dr. Jyoti, we
Ma'am,
cannot
I
see
can't see.
sorry. We cannot see your marker, Jyoti.
Okay, so I'll have to draw. Okay.
Yeah, you'll have to show it again.
So this is your horizontal lamella, right? Till the junction of the middle turbinate. Then the vertical part here, this vertical part will be your vertical lamella, and the part that you were showing is your fovea ethmoidalis. So that anatomy needs to be clear in your head. So yes, the medial lamella of the cribriform plate on the left is eroded. So overall, what are your differentials on the CT scan?
Ma'am, first would be one would be fungal sinusitis. Then second would be sinonasal polyposis and inverted papilloma, and can be a squamous cell carcinoma. That would I would keep it as in the lower list.
Okay.
And,
Anything else?
Antrochoanal polyp.
Okay, yes. Anything else?
Esthesioneuroblastoma.
Perfect. So I think we have listed all our differentials here, and we will go one by one as to what goes in favor of one particular diagnosis and what doesn't. So let's start with your first one, the inflammatory conditions that you're talking about, right? You're talking about fungal sinusitis. What fungal sinusitis are you talking about? What are the types of fungal sinusitis?
Ma'am, fungal sinusitis can be allergic sinusitis or fungal ball, or it could be invasive fungal sinusitis like invasive aspergillosis.
Perfect. So these are your main types, right? Invasive could be acute and chronic. So let's not go into that. So what type are you talking about? Fungal sinusitis, you can't use the generic term fungal sinusitis because all these have very different pathophysiologies and treatments and imaging findings.
Okay, ma'am, angioinvasive fungal sinusitis.
Angioinvasive fungal sinusitis. What does that do?
Ma'am, actually, because of the destruction of the medial lamella.
What kind of
usually causes bone destruction?
Right. So what kind of bone changes is it predominantly causing? Is it causing bone destruction predominantly, or is it causing bone remodeling predominantly? Is it basically causing expansion and remodeling, or the predominant effect that you see is bone destruction? Bone destruction is when the bone is just blown away and you see mass on the other side. So what is the predominant bone change here?
It's causing bone remodeling, ma'am. Bone remodeling, ma'am.
Okay, so will that be the case in invasive fungal sinusitis?
No, ma'am. That usually causes an erosive changes.
Definitely. So the predominant change here is not erosion, but remodeling. And we don't expect to see that in invasive fungal sinusitis. And we have a lot of extra sinus fat inflammation and stranding and extensions that happens with invasive fungal sinusitis. Everything appears to be very clear around the sinuses and the orbit. So all that is very clear. So it's very unlikely to be invasive fungal sinusitis. The second differential was antrochoanal polyp, right? So what is in favor of and against?
Ma'am, antrochoanal polyp usually starts from the maxillary cavity and enters into the nasal cavity. So it usually the features would be like expansion of the maxillary cavity. While in this case, we have an expansion of the nasal cavity. Predominantly, mass is centered in nasal cavity and extending into the maxilla. And second thing is, antrochoanal polyp will not involve an ethmoidal air cells. While in this, we could see the mass is extending into the ethmoidal air cells. So that is also favoring. That is also not goes in favor of antrochoanal polyp.
Okay, but an inflammatory polyp may, not an enteroconal maybe, but let's say an inflammatory polyp could involve the ethmoids as well. But yes, the very good point is here that so you said that the anteroconal polyp enlarges the antrum and kind of, then extends into the nasal cavity and the choana. But what is happening here to the maxillary sinus? You
Ma'am,
can, yeah.
Ma'am, it is the mass is actually causing bowing of the medial wall of the maxillary sinus.
That's all right. Acha, go to your soft tissue window again. Let me take a look there. Okay, now look at the maxillary sinus here on the axial windows. What is happening to the left maxillary sinus?
It's because of the bowing, it's actually compressed.
So yes, the medial wall is bowed laterally. Definitely there's mass effect there. That could be the cause. Perfect. But you have some changes in the anterior and the lateral wall of the maxillary sinus also here, right? On the middle, this one here and this here. So what is happening to these walls here?
Sorry, ma'am.
No problem, no problem.
Yeah. Can you repeat, ma'am?
What is happening to the other walls of the maxillary sinus?
Yes, ma'am.
Look at in head and neck, it is, we have symmetry to kind of compare it with. That is the best part about head and neck imaging, and that is what makes it so easy. Now look at the other maxillary sinus on the right side. What is happening to this maxillary sinus?
It is also bowed, ma'am.
Yeah, so do you think a nasal mass would bow the lateral wall of the maxillary sinus and the anterior wall of the maxillary sinus? Would it do that?
Ma'am, maybe because of the obstruction, it is it's due to the silent sinus.
Perfect. So it is atelectasis of the maxillary sinus. We'll not call it silent because silent per se denotes that the patient does not have symptoms. But this patient is not silent, right? But the pathophysiology is similar because of obstruction. The volume, there is negative pressure in the sinus over time, and this happens. And now this atelectasis also suggests that it's a long-standing obstruction, right? So your acute sinusitis, acute invasive sinusitis, all those acute processes or aggressive processes will really not fit here. We are looking at something which is long-standing. Even the history was long-standing, right? It was a 1 year long history. Also, anteroconal polyp, the age is slightly, let's say 60s plus, usually seen in the relatively younger age group, 30s, 40s, 20s. So now, what was your next differential?
Inverted papilloma, ma'am.
Okay. So what are the points in favor and against?
Ma'am, the mass is predominantly in the nasal cavity and going into the maxillary cavity. It's more confined into the, and it's unilateral. It's unilateral and homogeneous. The mass is while in case of the like as we said in sinusitis, fungal sinusitis or sinonasal polyposis, it is usually not that this unilateral. They are the conditions are usually bilateral. And age also points towards like inverted papilloma is more common in the elderly, and inverted papilloma is also known to have an hemorrhage within. So this the hyperdensities may represent the on NCCT may represent the hemorrhagic areas within. And along with that, there are few calcific or bony fragments which is seen, which is also a feature of inverted papilloma.
Okay. So and the location of the mass?
Yes, and the location of the mass, it is predominantly arises from the lateral wall of the nasal cavity, lateral wall of the nasal septum, and predominantly near the middle turbinate and epicentered in that region. So
that is the epicenter of the mass, right? So age is perfect, location is perfect, imaging criteria also, imaging wise also, it kind of fits, and we are looking at a benign, we feel that it may be a benign long-standing process. So inverted papilloma fits the bill, right? The other differentials that you had were You had were
Squamous
cell
cell
cancer, which is the most common cancer of the sinonasal region. So why and why not?
Ma'am, because of the medial lamella, and moreover, even in cases of inverted papilloma, there is malignant transformation which is possible and can harbor the malignancy within. Means it's a the squamous cell carcinoma can also occur in inverted papilloma. So it's difficult to differentiate on NCCT images, but due to the erosion over the cribriform plate, I kept it as a one of the differential.
All this, as we said earlier, the predominant bone changes are remodeling changes, and even with expansion and remodeling, there may be pressure erosion of certain bones.
Yes, ma'am.
And yes, there may be some destruction also.
Yes,
that can happen. Yes, that may be there present here also. But the predominant bone change which we expect to happen with a squamous cell cancer is a
destructive erosion.
lytic destruction of bone, which is not happening here. The predominant change is remodeling. And the next was your esthesioneuroblastoma. Why and why not?
Esthesioneuroblastoma, ma'am, although it is esthesioneuroblastoma, it occurs at the anterior ethmoidal cells and extends into the cranial cavity. We don't see an extension into the cranial cavity in our case. However, yes. Because of the involvement of the nasal anterior ethmoidal layer cells, I kept it as one of the differential.
I don't think you should stress too much on the anterior ethmoidal layer cells, but this because the site of origin of esthesioneuroblastoma is not anterior ethmoidal layer cell, but superior nasal cavity, which is the olfactory recess. Yes. And of course, yes, that also is involved here. So nasal and with cribriform plate destruction, yes, the mass can extend lower down and into the sinuses, definitely can do that. But it is very common to see intracranial extension with esthesioneuroblastoma. Yes, in a mass of this kind of size. So yes, it's a differential, and it's a malignant tumor. And again, it shows remodeling of bones predominantly, which we see here. But intracranial extension in a mass of this size, maybe I would have expected to see in an ENB, like that would have tilted it towards ENB. So we have our differentials with us. So what do you want to do next?
I want to go for contrast CT scan or MRI.
Either of the two?
Yes, ma'am.
I will not say either of the two.
MRI of the PNS.
Yes, why?
Ma'am, in order to, like we said, in order to distinguish the margin of the tumor from the inspissated secretion, as we are expecting in our case, we need to that would be possible through MR imaging to differentiate the soft tissue, the margin of the soft tissue from the inspissated secretions due to the obstruction.
So it has a better soft tissue resolution, and we should go ahead with an MR. What role does CT play in evaluation of sinonasal masses?
For bony destruction and internal calcification, and also extent of the mass.
So extent is better seen on MR, right? Yes, so if you see, I have to see the extent of the mass, which is now the next clinical question. MR would be superior to CT, and CT is mainly for bones, and we have solved that problem with our NCCT only. So we really, if we have to select between the two, it has to be a contrast enhanced MR. So you have those MR images with you. Please show us.
Yes, ma'am. The first row shows axial T1 weighted MR images and coronal T2 weighted fat suppressed MR images, which shows a homogeneous mass lesion appearing predominantly hypointense on T1 weighted images with few areas of hyperintensities on T1 weighted images, and it is hyperintense on T2 weighted images with linear hypointensities within the mass, and it is extending into the through the osteometrial unit. It is extending into the maxillary sinus, and also the left maxillary sinus and left frontal sinus, and
Can you just outline that for the benefit of the residents here?
left maxillary
Yes.
sinus and
Yes.
left frontal sinus, and we can also see T2 hyperintensity involving the left frontal and left maxillary sinus, which is not showing any internal linear T2 hypointensities as seen in the other part of the mass. And T2 hyperintensity is also noted in the left sphenoid sinus. And
Right.
it is also extending into the nasopharynx through the posterior choana, and yes, and it is limited by the nasal nasal septum along the medial aspect.
Yeah, so it's predominantly on the lateral side of the nasal cavity.
Yes,
What would
and we have the contrast enhanced T1 weighted images, axial and the coronal, which shows heterogeneous contrast enhancement of the mass with linear T1 linear hypointensities, non-enhancing hypointensities within, which gives an appearance of convoluted or striated appearance. And the point to note is the part of the maxillary sinus which was on T2, which was not showing any linear T2 hypointense linear hypointensities, does not show any contrast enhancement. Only mild peripheral rim of contrast enhancement is present in left maxillary and left sphenoid sinus, and no contrast enhancement in the left frontal sinus. So these likely represent inspissated secretions as was seen on CT, the hypotense areas.
Okay, so on the bottom left image, we don't say that we can't see extension to the frontal sinus because we can see extension to the frontal sinus, right? So part of it, the mass extends partly into the left frontal sinus. Outline that for us. Yeah, so this is the mass and the rest of it is secretions. Number two, it'll be difficult to call these inspissated secretions based on these images because it was bright on T2 and hypo on T1 and it is showing peripheral rim enhancement. So let's avoid the word inspissated and just call it retained secretions here for the. Thirdly, any negative findings that you want to talk about?
Ma'am, no extension into the intracranial, no intracranial extension, and no intraorbital extension, and
yes. So these are very important things that the surgeon would want to know, because our job in sinonasal tumor imaging is very often not to actually really diagnose, pinpoint the pathological diagnosis, but to map the extent. So that is our primary job. So where it has gone and where it hasn't has to be very clear when we see the mass. Okay, so just sum up your findings here on MR quickly in one line, like just very briefly.
Expansile sinonasal soft tissue mass lesion appearing intermediate signal intensity on T1 and hyperintense on T2 with linear hypointensity on T2 weighted images and post contrast images giving a striated appearance. And extending from the left nasal cavity into the left maxillary and left frontal and left sphenoid sinus, this likely suggestive of inverted papilloma.
Yeah. So now we can kind of tell them that yes, we are looking at an inverted papilloma, and we have gotten rid of most of the other differentials that we had in mind, right? So Okay, so what is the convoluted cerebriform pattern that you've been talking about? What is this?
Ma'am, actually, this inverted papilloma is mainly the epithelium grows below the basement membrane. That means it grows within the stroma. So on contrast images, we see the non-enhancing, these linear strands are actually the metaplastic squamous epithelium, which are not enhancing, and the stroma is enhancing. That's why this appearance which we get in inverted papilloma.
Perfect, perfect. So this we see all on T1 post contrast as well as on T2.
Yes.
Very good. So suppose now that you know it is an inverted papilloma, do you want to see something else on CT that you haven't commented on before when we were talking about CT? And I didn't really push you there because I thought let's come to diagnosis first and then I'll take you back to CT. Anything that you should have looked for, like now the surgeon knows it's an inverted papilloma. Let's say the patient underwent a nasal endoscopy first. So the diagnosis was already known to the surgeon. It was an inverted papilloma. So they sent you the case for an MR and you have done an MR. You haven't done your CT yet. But now that you have mapped the extent on your MR, do you really want to still do a CT? And what do you specially look for on CT?
Is
Any
Kiros type?
No, Kiros. Why do you want to check Kiros here? Okay, go back to your CT images. Okay, bone window images. Okay. This let me try and mark it again here. How do I draw? Okay, so can you see my arrow here?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, this one has kind of blob of Jyoti Kumar there. So let me just undo this. But this white strut of bone, the white strut of bone here, maybe on the second image again, you can see that here. The third image was better, but I can't seem to get rid of this big red.
Clear view options, clear.
Clear all drawings. Okay, so this third image here, the white straight line here that you see. Would you like to, does something ring a bell?
This one?
No, the white, the one that you called calcification in the nasal cavity in the ethmoid region.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Does it ring a bell anywhere? Have you heard of the term hyperostosis? Focal hyperostosis?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So look at this. It's the same thing which you see on the soft tissue window. Go to your soft tissue window, the one that you were calling calcification. Now look at this look at the bone density here, right? So look at the density here. It's not the normal lamella of bone that you see on the right side. No, it's denser. So this is your focal hyperostosis, which is characteristically seen in inverted papilloma. And why is it important to localize this? Why is it important to look for this?
We have to see the striated pattern also, the convoluted pattern adjacent to this.
No, so hyperostotic spur is important to localize because this is presumably the site of origin of inverted papilloma. Now, to go into details, there are two types of spurs, but and this cone-shaped and plaque-shaped, and the cone-shaped spur is more convincingly related to the origin than a plaque-shaped spur. So this one appeared to me like a plaque-shaped, a linear thin line. It wasn't like a cone attached to a bone. So it could be related with the site of origin. It couldn't be. So, but what are the when the surgeon operates on it, on an inverted papilloma, what are the things that you want to really keep in mind? What are the problems that the patient may face after surgery?
The recurrence?
Yeah, so recurrence is a big problem. And to reduce the chances of recurrence, this focal hyperostotic spur needs to be removed. And you as a radiologist are duty bound to look at the CT images, try and localize a spur if present, and point it out to your surgeon. Right? And the other thing is your malignancy, synchronous as well as metachronous cancers may happen. Now, if the mass has a synchronous squamous cell cancer, what are the imaging findings that could suggest the possibility before the patient is taken up for surgery, so that the surgeon can plan the surgery accordingly? Because so what are the imaging pointers to the presence of a synchronous SCC in an inverted papilloma?
Ma'am, the bone erosion.
Okay, yes. So bone destruction. Yes.
Ma'am, we can even have DWI imaging, which can also be helpful.
Okay, it's sounding logical. I'm not too sure about it, but it does sound logical. I don't know how it's the. Okay, furthermore.
Nodal involvement.
Very good. Presence of nodes.
Level 1 and level 2.
Yeah, presence of nodes.
And any
focal
intracranial or intraorbital extension.
Yes, extrasinus extension. Wonderful. Yes.
Extension. Crossing the midline, like bilateral, although inverted papilloma can also be bilateral, but
rarely so, but yes.
Rarely.
And focal loss of the convoluted cerebriform pattern and gross necrosis within the tumor.
Necrosis, yes.
Necrosis. These are pointers that you may suggest to your surgeon that there may be a synchronous SCC herein. So I think that's all from my side. I would like to share my screen now, Komal, but I must compliment you on your performance. It was really, really good. And you could please stop sharing your screen. I'll just show a couple of slides from my end, and that will be very quick.
Yes, ma'am.
So my screen is there. Yeah. So this is how the mucosa just inverts into the stroma, and this epithelium here is more cellular than the stroma. So this is darker on T2. The stroma is less cellular, so it's brighter on T2. On contrast enhanced imaging, this is less vascular, the epithelium, so it is not as enhancing as the stroma, which is more vascular. So these are the features that give us the convoluted cerebriform pattern on T2 and on contrast enhanced imaging. And this is what I was talking about. Narrow your soft tissue window settings, and it may help you to delineate the mass from the secretions even on CT, but it may be difficult still. And just a couple of articles that you could kind of go through to enhance your knowledge here in sinonasal neoplasms. Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you, Komal. It was very nice.
Thank you, Dr. Jyoti, for a wonderful case that you have taken and discussed it so thoroughly. Thank you, Dr. Komal. That was really very well done. I mean, it was, you went about systematically, and that is what an ideal case discussion in the exam should be like.